Hello, everybody, and welcome to another A Better Way of Life. It's Friday. I hope you're all well. I hope you're ready for the weekend. I've just been thrown a little bit off kilter this morning by my co-host because she was talking about the Sex Museum in Amsterdam. So it's not somewhere I've ever visited. It's good
I
though.
have. I have. It's actually very educational history. Well,
Yeah.
it was. I went years and years ago, like years and years ago. My friend worked over there,
Oh
not
yeah,
in.
but things have moved on in that area since then. I mean, it might be
I don't
completely
know. I
different now.
might have to just go and check it out. But
Mm.
yeah, it was. It actually, on a serious note, it was quite interesting because it talks about a lot of the history around that. And I had a conversation with some learners the other day about um, that. What do you call it? That profession, the profession that
Oh yeah, yeah.
often is frowned upon. And we got talking about the judgments of that, and then that actually it's one of the oldest professions. So
Yeah, there you go. Well, and it's what a way to start a Friday morning, isn't it? With a conversation about that particular thing. There's a, there's there's lots of things you can go and do in Amsterdam, which you can't do other
I
places
will let you
as well.
do, and they're not the things that my kids think I might go and do.
No, absolutely. We've got a young man on today who's mastered something which I never managed to master.
My mum did.
Uh, Right. Okay. Yeah. One of my kids managed to master it quite well, but I don't think at the speed that this young man could do it.
I did have somebody on my course that taught us how to do it, but that was like way over my. I probably maybe could have done, but it would have been very slow. I wonder if people know what it is.
Yeah. I wonder if you've guessed. Well, you probably have because you probably read the blurb that I've put with this now. But if you haven't, if you just happened upon this and you're sat there thinking, what is it that they're talking about? Now's the time to find out as we welcome George to our little room. George,
Hey guys, how
pleasure
you
to
doing?
have you.
No, thank
Uh,
you so much.
We're good. George, just tell everybody what it is that you are master of.
Yeah, I mean, Master's very kind, but yeah, I'm a professional Rubik's Cube solver. So yeah, I just solve the Rubik's Cube at speed essentially for a job.
That is just so cool.
That work? How does that work? That you do it for job?
Yeah, so I'm an ambassador for the Rubik's brand. I have been actually for
Wow.
5 years now. So essentially, yeah, I just like to discuss the Rubik's Cube, talk about the Rubik's Cube, and also just like go to competitions and wear Rubik's apparel. And also, yeah, just kind of put it in a good light and hope people will maybe get into it as well.
Right now, listen. Going back years, so right back into the. Do you know? Do you know what year the Rubik's Cube came out?
I do it. Actually, this year is quite a big year because it's the 50-year anniversary since the cube was
I thought.
invented. It was
I
released though
thought
in
it was
1920, so it's just like kind of over 40 years old in terms of when it was released to the public.
right. So I remember getting brought my first Rubik's Cube by my gran in
Mhm.
Hastings. And at the same time, there was a book that came out in the UK very early
Yeah,
on, with a young lad on the front with quite a bob, who was a bit of a master. I think he had a very smart kind of blazer on as well. I mean, as kind of young influencers
classic kind of
in.
80s
Yeah,
style.
yeah. Here's a young boffin. I think
Yeah,
we
yeah,
kind of tried to
yeah.
make
Yeah,
out in those days that any youngster that had been spending their time doing the Rubik's Cube clearly needed to go on to Cambridge or Oxford University to study something incredibly clever and then
like
solve the
mathsy,
world.
people always think. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I got the book as well. Couldn't understand a word of it. Could not get a word of it.
Yeah,
Right?
fair enough. I don't think I would have been able to work it out by the book either. I mean, I think I've been lucky in that when I kind of went about learning how to solve it, it was all out there online. It's a lot easier to follow when it's a video, I think, and I truly believe anyone can learn. So yeah, I would like to think that maybe if I taught you, obviously that would work as well. But even if you approached it like with a video or something, it'd probably be a lot easier now than it used to be.
Well, I've noticed that Marianne, you look like you're frozen there. Yeah, in fact, I think she has. Let's see if we. What we'll do is we'll do this. There we go. For anyone that didn't notice that, but you didn't notice it. Right. So I remember very early on then working out how to do the Rubik's Cube, which was firstly removing all of the stickers, which I'm sure sorry,
I've
Rubik.
actually got that before. I've been told before that people do take the stickers off. Yeah, that is a method.
And I'm going to tell people now that one doesn't work, right? Because you can always tell a Rubik's Cube where the stickers have been taken off.
It doesn't work quite as well, does it? It doesn't look very well solved.
No, your stickers end
called
up slightly crooked.
Cheating.
Yeah. I mean, it's not solving it.
And then I adopted my favorite method of all, which it was actually something that ran all the way through my childhood, which is if you couldn't work out how to solve it, take the thing to bits. So I then used a screwdriver, popped it, put them all back together. It's that's really quite hard because it's a very tightly pushed together.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, to be honest, I did see that as an option when I was learning, but decided against it.
Yeah, but this is cheating, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's not actually solving it, is it?
No, it's not actually solving it, but I think it's quite nice to kind of reminisce. And I'm sure whilst we're talking about this, there will be some other people on there that went, I did all of that as well, etc. So
my mum learned. My mum could do it. I remember my mum being able to do it. I just didn't have the patience.
I mean, a good portion of the world population can solve Rubik's Cube.
Really?
It's like less than 10%. It's not like a massive amount, but it's an amount where you'd be like, okay, like it's doable, and I truly think it is. I think when it starts getting interesting is when you try and go for speed, because to solve a Rubik's Cube, you might know this. Your mum definitely does. That you learn algorithms. And an algorithm sounds very, very mathematical, but actually, just when applied to Rubik's Cube, it's just a set of moves. So just any set of moves. Well, not any. They're distinct, but you learn these sets of moves, and they'll do certain things to the cube, and you sort of like reduce it to a step that you sort of recognize and a pattern that you recognize, and then you do an algorithm that will solve a piece that you want. And a typical beginner will actually only need to know about 4 or 5 algorithms to solve the cube. The hardest part is just recognizing when to use them. And these algorithms, they're short. They're like 10 moves. So like you just imagine like a 10 chord piano song. You can ingrain that in your procedural memory, your muscle memory, and then just apply it. And it's the same thing with the Rubik's Cube. But then obviously to get faster, you want to learn more algorithms. So I know about 1,000 algorithms, and that's been the biggest how I've improved. And there's still many, many more for me to learn. But I mean, obviously you can pretty much learn infinite. I mean, the amount of combinations Rubik's Cube has is 43 quintillion, which is like, it's 250 times more than there are stars in our galaxy. So, that's why it's also not that boring to me when someone mixes it up. It's not like I've seen this a million times before. It's like, this is something completely new that no one in the world has ever seen, because it's got that many combinations. So yeah.
I know I had a guy that was on my course, and he did how to not do the whole thing, but I guess I was assessing him, so I was sort of half paying attention to that, but also knowing it's probably not something I'm ever gonna get anyway. But I remember him talking about algorithms, because I guess it's somebody last week I was teaching did Sudoku, and again that's one of those things I look at and go, can't do that. But actually, you're saying this.
You're reducing it to maybe like a pattern that you'll recognize, and then just filling it in. I think there are loads of like sort of transferable initiatives that you'll use from cubing. So like also chess, I think there are similarities there. But yeah, I've never really got into those other things. I mean, I think I'm probably quite obsessive with stuff. So I picked up the cube and was like, this is going to be my thing.
I think maybe that's why I've not gone down that road. Because I know that if I go down that road, because it was really interesting watching them doing the Sudoku last week, and actually watching the Rubik's Cube one when he was teaching them, that you had people going, one guy last week went, I can't do that. And so because the guy said as the initial assessment, who can do a Sudoku, and the guy went, I can't do that. He said, just have a go and see I can't do that. And he was adamant, I can't do that. So he talked, and then the guy put it down. He didn't want to put it down. He was like, I need to finish this one off. And you just saw exactly that when somebody gets taught that like you said, breaking it down into something more. I just see this huge problem that looks way too difficult. And
Yeah, I think you're not really helped. So I'm not going to try and teach you guys at all today. But what really helped me, and kind of, if you want to like do like kind of understand the cube, you need to understand the theory of the cube and the way the cube actually works.
Yeah,
Oh, I
like,
love that.
Actually, like the way it's put together is incredible. Construction, like mechanically, is an incredible piece of engineering. Like, it's actually only got 3 different types of pieces. So like these middle
Look
pieces,
at that speed. Just look at the speed by which she does that, by the way. Yeah.
So these middle pieces, they determine the color of each side. So those 6 pieces are actually always solved. So white is always opposite yellow, blue is always opposite green, red is always opposite orange. Okay, so like knowing that helps, and then knowing that you have 3 different. You also have like an edge piece. You have the 2 color pieces,
what
and
is
then
this
a 2 color piece, and then you have a corner piece, which is a 3 color piece, and they just go in like that, and then like that's how the cube is like constructed. And understanding that really helps, because actually the way you solve the cube is you solve edge pieces and corner pieces, and edge pieces then corner pieces, bit by bit by bit, until the cube is solved.
So it's a little bit like when I know I'm simplifying this a lot, but if anybody if anybody does a jigsaw, right?
I was thinking jigsaws,
Yeah, but if anybody starts with a jigsaw and they go like, oh, let's do all of the middle bit first, you're like, no, because especially if it's like a thing of sky, you're going to be completely lost.
The corners, right? You find the 4 corners first if you want to do a jigsaw, and that's very similar to if you were to like, for example, build the cross on the cube. That's like the first step. And and I think it's a very common misconception that you solve it that you solve it side by side. Like people will be like, oh, I solved like 3 sides and not the next like 3. That's like not even possible. But also like it just wouldn't have helped solving a side. You need to solve it layer by layer, so row by row. So if I were to show you an example of a layer, so
is this a new type of Rubik's cube? Because that's not what it looked like when I was younger.
This is just stickerless. It just hasn't got the black borders. These are the ones you're familiar with. Yeah. It's just So you solve the first layer like that. See, but like if it was like this, for example, like that's a side, sure, but it's actually not a layer, so it's actually not very useful like for solving the cube. So it's like understanding that's a layer and the difference between those 2, and then you just build it row by row until it's solved. So
how would you start off then if you were going to teach us?
If I was going to teach you how to solve it,
I'd probably say don't try to teach.
I'll teach you first the daisy probably, because that like then you build from the daisy, you build across. So I'll solve the. Okay, so here's the cube. So I teach you how to do something that looks like this. So you locate the yellow centerpiece, and then you around those to build a little daisy, like that.
Okay.
Step. Okay. Are you focusing on these edge pieces and trying not to get distracted by these like corner pieces?
How would you do? Is that trial and error to get that?
No. Not necessarily trial and error. You use like it's called it's probably one of the only intuitive steps on the cube. The rest of them are pretty algorithmic. But this part, you will have to just think, oh, okay, like this white edge piece here needs
to go up. Yeah.
So I move it up. Okay, and then you do that with all 4. And then what you'll soon run into though, and I think this is one of the most impressive, powerful things about the cube, right? Is in order to solve more, you have to mess up what you've already made temporarily.
Yes, all the time. And
that's an incredible, like mindset to have. So you will need to undoubtedly mess up what you've already made to solve more.
Don't you think that's where most people get stuck? Because I think most people go.
I think like, oh, my beautiful work, I don't want to destroy it. but that's how you solve it. You need to mess it up. But that's why algorithms help, because if you were to just solve it via pure intuition, it's quite a feat. I mean, I really think that's an impressive thing to do. I only know a couple of people that have ever done that, and I think you need to be very, very clever. But like when you use algorithms, you're just following instructions. But what these algorithms are, what they're doing is messing up the cube temporarily, then putting it back, having switched a few pieces. So yeah.
George, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How on earth did you get into knowing you could do this, and how did you even get a job doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I find it interesting. People always say like knowing I could do this. I mean, I didn't know I could do it. You don't know you can do anything until you try it, right? I mean, I started off doing close-up magic actually. This is when I was like 13 years old. I wasn't like that good, but I really liked like magic, and I noticed that Rubik's Cube magic was becoming a bit of a trend within the Magic community. So I decided to pick up a Rubik's Cube and try and integrate that in my routines. And then when I did, I was just hooked. So I was like, okay, I'm going to learn some tricks with it. Then I was like, actually, I might as well learn how to solve it. Then I learned how to solve it, and I was like, well, I might as well try and get faster. And then just dropped everything else and just only did the cube. And then after about a year and a half, that's when I first got my first UK champion title and national record and stuff. Yeah.
And so, your job, what does it entail?
Yeah, I mean, it's diverse, it's random. I mean, to be honest, like I've been doing it like since the start of this year, like just only Rubik stuff. But I'm looking really to like have more of a routine because it is very diverse. But yeah, essentially, I'll do public speaking, so like talking to people, teaching people, coaching, so that's teaching kids how to solve it or how to get faster at solving it. Media appearances, and then my role as a Rubik's ambassador, which is like creating content for them, promoting them. So yeah, it's quite a range, but yeah, I mean, like, I just finished uni, so it's kind of like this weird tentative post-university stage, like navigating that. So yeah, it's been fun though.
That's a great influencer. That is a great example.
It is. Now there's lots of things that I've been thinking about while you've talking there. One is, so George, what I need to explain is that Marianne runs a training company. So her training is fundamentally one of the main things she trains at the moment is AET, right? Have you ever heard of that? Which is training people who train how to train.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is something that we're really quite passionate about, because a lot of people that know stuff don't necessarily know how to say that stuff or teach that stuff to other people. How have you found, firstly, as a question, how have you found it? Because you've learned all of this stuff, but then how have you found it when you've then had to like explain it to other people? Have you found hurdles in that?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think I have. I'm quite anomalous in the fact that I did an English degree, and I think I really enjoy reading and words, and I think a lot of people that do cubing might be more mathsy, and that's not because you need to be a mathsy person to do it, but I think it's because people that like maths get into it. You know, it's more about the causation rather than the pre-existing like mind that they have. But yeah, I think because I'm quite analytical, I really like to break it down and try to make it understandable and palatable, and like an approachable thing that anyone can learn. And also I truly think it is something that anyone can learn. So due to that, I like to think that I've enjoyed like teaching people and trying to make it seem doable for anyone.
And then the other thing I was going to say, Marianne, and you can come in on this, is that we go on and on about aims and objectives. I think there's some really great aims and objectives.
Definitely.
In learning a Rubik's Cube,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not just even in learning it, in competing as well. I mean, like competing teaches you a lot of determination and diligence, I like to think. I mean, even if you look at like my progress through like the UK Championships, for example. So I started in 2015, went to the UK Championships in 2016. So I'd only been doing it for a year. I had very little experience, but I actually managed to make the final. So I made the final. But unfortunately, I came last in the final. Not that unfortunate, really. I didn't even expect to make it. I was just very happy to be there. And, there are like hundreds of competitors there. So I was like, okay, this is good. Top 16, because 16 make the final. Okay, very, very good. Next year, 2017, I was there again. And I've been practicing a lot, obviously. And I managed to make the final again, as I hoped, and actually managed to come third that year. So not only from 16 places the previous year to third the next year, I was now, I felt great about it. Also, I was inherently aware that I was only about 0.6 seconds away from being the UK champion, which is the most prestigious title you can get, right? And it all comes down to those souls in the final. None of your previous rounds matter. It's just how you do in the final. So you need to make the final as well. So then 2018 came around, and I was like, this is my time to be the UK champion. And I didn't even make the final. So like I just got super nervous in the semi-final and was like, I didn't even make it. And it was gutting. But I mean, I feel like, the nature of the keyboard, it teaches you need to mess up what you've already made to solve more. You need to accept that disturbance. I mean, I feel like it didn't even cross my mind to like sort of be like, that's a shame. Never going to do it again, really. Like I just practiced some more. Then 2019, I won by over half a second. So like, it just shows that, you need that diligence, that determination. I think the cube teaches you that.
I could really see you developing that into a talk for
I did a
businesses.
Okay, yeah.
but for businesses, because I mean, one of the things that I talk a lot about with various different people, culture change leaders, leaders within business, etc., is about change and change management, etc. And that whole bit around you've got to be comfortable to mess up what's already there is massive, because that's
the problem.
Because that's where so many businesses go wrong. Right? It's where so many organizations go wrong. Oh, well, but we've always done it that way. Yeah, but you've got to have the balls to actually go, do you know what? Yeah, but we're going to do it a different way. And actually it might go messy and it might cause a problem for a bit and whatever, but ultimately we're looking at the goal. We're looking at the big goal, and we'll only get to the big goal if we mess it up first.
Exactly. And also, like, if you're too focused on the goal, because I feel like in 2018 that's what I was too focused on being the UK champion. So also it's about focusing on the process rather than the outcome as well. So
it's really interesting. Well, I was talking to you about this yesterday, Graham. So Graham won't mind me saying this. So Graham was teaching me about doing social media content. So that was just the point I sort of met him, and he said that I'll teach you. So I thought, okay. I'd had somebody sort of have a go at it before, and I don't think I'm too bad. I'm fairly quite, I'll talk about stuff. I'm quite open with stuff. So anyway, set me a challenge. So I was like, oh, how did I do? And he said, well, you could have done this better. You could have done that. So I admit I threw my toys out the pram and my teacher hat cake. Well, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, hence probably why I'm not very good at seeing those problems like that, because I would I can't. So I was out the pram for a bit, and then came back and apologised to him, and then said I gave him feedback on his feedback. The teacher in me came out, and I said the issue was that it wasn't a bad thing as such, and this was where the whole thing with the training thing came up. And I think, Graham, you've learned quite a lot from it since, and I've taught you some stuff, and vice versa. That he was so intent on the content being right, so the product, that actually sort of forgetting that process. Whereas working with people, I'm a people person, so although I've got a psychology degree and stuff, I suppose that is arguably a people thing. That all the way through, I've always been very much about, and the same, I suppose, I sort of try to think about this when I'm working with my kids. I want them to do this, but I know they're probably not going to do that, so I've got to meet halfway. And so actually what I then said was that it was for him to sort of change his expectation. I think quite often that's why when you find people that are geniuses, they're not necessarily the best people to teach. Whereas, like you said, you've taught yourself actually, and that's probably why you become good at then teaching other people. Whereas people that are geniuses, when I did my degree, I really didn't like most of it, and I now know it was because the lecturers I had were very, very good, but they used to just say it, and
it just came to them, and there was no way of breaking it down.
No idea what you're talking about.
Elementary sense.
It's only then when I started teaching psychology, because I was asked, I thought, I really love this, and I hated it. I wanted to give it up.
I feel like if you're a genius, you don't get those like small epiphanies that you would get if you're learning from scratch, sort of.
Exactly. I was wondering if the other question I was going to ask is, and it might be, some people say, well, it always comes down to this. If people that are neurodiverse, maybe I know that I probably am, I would say, fairly good at teaching, one might say, because I've struggled.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe whether there's anything around that, whether people that find it easier, if they've got that sort of mind.
I do wonder, like I said, because I'm more of an artsy person as opposed to a mathsy person, like when I took on the cube, it was quite daunting, which meant that I had to really break it down. And actually the way I did learn was quite strategic. So it's 4 steps really, first layer, second layer, third layer, and you do the third layer in a couple of steps. So I actually assigned myself to learn 1 step each day. So by the end of each day, I could practice each step and get it down. So I'd never have to look back at a guide or anything like that. So then my first ever solve, I timed because I wanted to do it at speed because I could do every step at speed already because I practiced each step for a whole day. And I think, that's quite a good way of going about those sorts of things, is to really break it down and, again, focus on the process rather than like, oh, I just want to get it solved. Because a lot of people, and this is fine and this is great, and these are still very clever people, they'll just sit down and solve the cube and be done with it. And that's absolutely fine. I think you need to be a certain type of way to be a speed cuber, to be honest, to be willing to solve it, to then mess it up again, to solve it, to then mess it up again, to then learn more algorithms. Do
you think you have to be quite obsessive, like you said, because I know for me, if I go down that road, I often have to step away from things because I know
I'm definitely the same.
Yeah, myself on that road because.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say. I mean, I know of people that have been more of like, that have had a more kind of like a less obsessive approach to cubing, and they've still improved. But I'd say, in order to get fast progress and to achieve certain things, it might be worth having that sort of obsessive nature. Yeah.
It strikes me that you might have two completely different sides to you going on, which make you really, really good at this. And the reason I say that, the reason I don't think I was ever any good at it is I have no short-term memory whatsoever. so remembering like a set of instructions or whatever is completely out for me. I can't. I was a singer in the band in the 90s, and I couldn't even remember my own lyrics. I just had to have them written on my hand and stuff like that.
The thing is, like, ideally, you'd be turning these algorithms into like, it's procedural memory, it's muscle memory. It's like typing on a keyboard or something. Over time,
I think you've got to see it as
artificially in your short-term memory. And then you build them into your semantic memory.
But for some people, if your short-term memory doesn't work particularly well, it never goes into the long-term. So it just the processing part of it just kind of breaks down. But over the years, I've talked to numerous amounts of musicians, and actually, what's really interesting is that some of the ones that are absolutely top of their game have two completely different sides to them. They've got the one side to them. You're now going to go, oh, yeah, maybe I am. They have the one side to them which kind of understands all of the logic side of music, right? They kind of understand the patterns, how music structurally goes together, etc., so that they can follow the rules. But they also have that other side to them where they constantly want to break the rules and constantly think outside of the rules. Yeah,
definitely.
Do you feel like you've got to get to where you've got to? You've kind of got to develop both those sides. You've got to kind of go like, I know these are the algorithms and whatever, but I'm also looking at this going, actually, it's there. I didn't even know what that was, but it's
I think you're absolutely right. I feel like if you look at anyone at the top, there's some subversion of the conventional way, like, of doing something in some sense, So, for example, like this guy called Timon Kolosinski, he's Polish cuber, incredibly fast. He kind of became on top because he suddenly was doing this thing called pseudo slotting, which no one else had done before. And people actually, it was pretty. There was existing stuff about it, but he just really kind of honed it and learned how to improve it, and that suddenly made him a lot faster. He was more efficient. I invented with another guy and our own like kind of algorithm subset, and I feel like you want to optimize it, and you need creativity for optimization. So yeah,
that's so cool, isn't it?
I was thinking about the learning thing there, where you were saying about, because I know that when the guy did the Sudoku thing the other day, and he said it was like it didn't really matter that it was numbers, because actually it was about patterns, so it didn't. Really matter. I know you get different cubes with, I think, Christmas ones and all this kind of stuff. But I learned Braille because I was teaching visually impaired blind students. Wow. And what was interesting about that is that I hope I don't ever go blind, because actually people that are sighted, they do it by sight, so they don't actually do it by feel. Generally speaking, that's how you do it. So there's grade 1, there's grade 2. So grade 1 is the alphabet, and it's a bit like the guy last week that I was teaching. He did sign language. So, like you said, pretty much as long as you can do the alphabet, it might take you a long time if you wanted to spell something out, but you could make yourself know.
Yeah.
You've got grade 1 and then you've got grade 2. So grade 1 is the alphabet, and then you've got grade 2 starts building on sort of combinations of that. So you've got, I don't know if you know it with Braille, you've got 6 dots.
Yeah.
Like so you've got 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
What's interesting about it is I do it by sight. So I'll look and I see a pattern. So I'll know that 1 dot is A, 2 B, so on like that. But my husband's an engineer and he sees them as numbers. So for him, it would be, so where you've got 1 dot here, that's like, in here, I see a dot.
Yeah.
He sees number 1. So 1 and 0. That's how he sees 1 and 0. So
that's an incredible way of
the 2 dot, he sees 2.
Yeah.
The 0, if you see what I mean. And it's really interesting how completely differently we would look at things. But he can remember Wi-Fi codes. If we went to someone's house, he'll put a Wi-Fi code in, and then if we go back again and he's got a new phone, he would remember the Wi-Fi code. And I'm like, I can't even type a Wi-Fi code.
I think I'm slightly like that as well, actually, with the memorizing weird long patterns, and then suddenly realizing you remember it like 2 years later. But it doesn't always happen. I feel like it's whenever it's something that I'm like, oh, I should probably remember this, and then suddenly it like just stays. But I've noticed, I'm definitely a word guy, but I like it to do it. I feel like I remember numbers better, at least like identically. Yeah.
See, I struggled with postcodes, which then I don't know whether this is because whether it is because of my neurodiversity, I don't know. That I often used to get myself in trouble because I would get the wrong postcode written down, and it was because I don't know if anybody else has ever done this, but even now I know that it's not because I'm stupid or anything. I have a quick word with myself. So if I saw like GL9 or something, the 9 I will do with an N. I'll often, because I hear so I'll write that. The number of times I used to get myself, I used to think, what's going on here? Why?
But what? That could be really cool. You could probably memorize loads of numbers, because that's pretty much the mnemonic major system, which is when you assign a sound to a number. And then what you can do is then memorize massive long strings of numbers, because you can build a story using the sound.
I know about mnemonics, but I'd never really thought of that. It's just really bizarre. I used to think, why am I doing this wrong? And so now I have to really remember. Now I often take a picture of something because that's safer. But it hadn't ever occurred to me that that's what I was doing. So quite often it will happen. But I thought about using that to.
You really learn how to hone memory skills because you learn blindfolded Rubik's Cube solving as well. So like, and that does require some not like intense memory, because what you do is you only have to learn about, you assign a letter to each sticker on the cube, and then you memorize the cycles that they go in order for it to stay. Okay. So then essentially what you do is you memorize and then recall a string of letters, a string of digits, but you put them into pairs, and then out of those letter pairs you build an image. So so like DF would become dragonfly, and then you build a whole story.
And I think they can see me being a champion here, maybe.
I was gonna ask you, George. I mean, I've got 2 clients at the moment who are, one's partially sighted, one's registered blind. Are there people with different disabilities that have come into the sport? Are there people that are blind that can do the Rubik's Cube? Do they have something on the Rubik?
You can get So I don't know of anyone like myself personally, but I know of cubers that are partially sighted, and because you can get that, like, obviously you can get kind of these cubes that have different textures for each color. So then they'll determine it by texture instead of color. And that can work just as well. It's amazing. I've also seen someone that was solving a cube virtually they didn't have arms, but they were solving a cube virtually using their nose on a iPad as well, which is pretty amazing. So the physical capabilities, you don't need to be using your hands. You can use anything to solve a cube. It's just about the logic.
I wonder whether anyone helps. Sorry, I was going to say, I wonder whether anyone's actually using partly the sound to actually solve it. Like,
Oh yeah, I think that'd be a bit harder. I mean, obviously, like when I like hear a solve, I kind of can sometimes tell what sort of algorithms they're doing just because of like how some algorithms sound. But that's sort of like a meme and a joke in the community because like someone like made a video, they were like, you can just memorize algorithms by going and then
that's
like
what I
then
mean. Yeah,
yeah.
you can kind of tell what they're doing.
you can sort
you find only my son plays the drums, and it's funny. I've got two sons, and the elder one he's been doing it for years. The younger one, sort of 4 years younger, and it's quite funny because Graham, you've seen the video. They've got very, very different technique. The one sort of learns, but also he plays by sound. So the younger one is completely self-taught. He's watched his brother. He's watched YouTube. He's got a very aggressive, I would say, approach to playing.
Yeah.
Samuel, totally, but he's like, it really wasn't he fairly good, I think, for somebody I haven't been taught. But I've watched Samuel, and I don't play drum. Well, they tried teaching me. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be in any.
The video is on LinkedIn, folks.
I'm not, but he was a very good teacher, actually. But he, when I watch him, I like watching him. And now I'm completely obsessed now when I watch bands, and I think it annoys me when the singers are in the way because I think watching a drummer, they shove the drummer at the back. But actually, the drummers are really great to watch.
Yeah. To think how it would sound without them as well.
Yeah, but I watch him and he's really going for it. But he comes home quite often and he said, I just need to chill out. And he absolutely goes hell for leather on these drums and he finds it really relaxing. And I'm wondering for you, is that.
Cubing's so relaxing. Yeah. Oh, I find it incredibly relaxing. I do it to procrastinate though as well. So I have somewhat of a bad sort of relationship with it in that way. I think I was doing more solves than ever during my dissertation, to be honest. But no, yeah, definitely. I really enjoy. I enjoy solving. I mean, I was willing to do it for 24 hours straight when I got that Guinness World Record a couple of years ago, and I pretty much loved every second. I mean, even like the fatigue wasn't too bad just because I was sort of in a zone. I like to think that I sort of do enter. And there's so much more literature on this now, but it's still, not really understood. But a flow state, I like to think I sort of enter a flow state when I solve, at certain points. And I've changed my lifestyle really to allow for my solving to improve. I mean, after uni, I've started focusing a lot more on my health, and I'm a very avid runner. Care a lot more about sleep. Sleep's so important, and what I eat. I've kind of just tried to make sure that in every way I can be as lucid as possible when I'm solving.
Like with anything that somebody sort of gets into and they master and whatever, there must be days when it just ain't clicking. Do you, in the same way, like, when I've spoken to top musicians who perhaps hit a brick wall of a day and whatever, and great advice is like, put down what you do normally for that day and like go and paint a picture instead, or go for
exactly.
or do something else. Do you have days where it's just like
absolutely there'll definitely be days where I'm not solving too well, and you should never expect to be getting PBs every day, but it's all about the progress. But you know what, and I feel like I've got this a lot from running, is those sort of days where the run will kind of just suck all the way through, and those runs I look back and I like, because that's where the progress lies, because you're still putting the miles in even if you don't feel like it. And I feel like you have that sense as well for cubing, or for anything that you're practicing when you don't feel like it, or maybe you're not doing too well but you're still practicing anyway. You'll be surprised by the progress that's made during that. And equally as well, even for example, if you're as well with running, like if I've got quite a long run, I might not feel it for the first sort of 10k, and then suddenly I get into it. Same with cubing, I could do about 100 solves, they're all terrible, and then suddenly I sort of get into a zone and can solve well. It's really kind of interesting, the sort of similarities you can find between cubing and any other hobby really. But obviously I hit brick walls, and what I found as well is like just to add some like some dynamism in your practicing strategies. So don't just solve. That's not going to actually get you that much faster. To a certain point, you'll recognize patterns, but you won't improve massively. Start practicing the inspection time, because in competition you get 15 seconds of inspection time to look at a cube. That's a lot of time. You can plan out a lot more than I think we as humans think we can plan out right now. I mean, there are there's this Chinese kid, I saw this video, who was planning out pretty much the whole solve of an inspection, which is ridiculous. Like the whole solve bar the last step, which is like mental. So yeah, and so I can practice inspection, and also there are 17 different official events you can compete in. So like the classic is obviously a 3x3, but you can get a 2x2, 4 on each side. That one is obviously fun to solve. A cube, this turns diagonally,
Yeah.
So yeah, there are also
those. They're not Rubik's cubes, I'm sure, but they're not. There's like barrel type ones. Is it the same sort of concept?
A barrel.
Well, they're like, I don't know if you've seen them, Graham.
What we're talking about here is that there are other people do make knockoffs. No,
it's not. It's a completely different thing. It's like a barrel.
But what I was going to say was, I was going to ask George. Have you tried different shapes? Are there different shapes that Rubik's make?
Plenty. I've had so I've had 11 national records, but they've been across quite a few events. So there are 17 different official events. So yeah, I've tried pretty much all of them. I really enjoy all of them, except from really like 6x6 and 7x7. If you think the regular one is a 3x3, so those bigger ones, I just find them a bit tedious in some ways, just because it's quite So the pieces are smaller, so it's not too bad. Yeah, that's like a 6x6. But the thing is, like, it's the same initiative to solve 4x4 is already a 6x6. It's not much different. So you're not like, it's just more time consuming, but you're doing the same thing. So I'd rather do something that is quicker, like a 4x4.
That's the ones I meant, like these ones.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So that's not an official WCA event.
No. I just want but how did you do those? Is it the same kind of principle?
I mean, I think you'd probably like use something that's similar to algorithms to solve that. I would have thought, like an algorithm really, like, yeah, sure, it's a set of moves on a cube. An algorithm is just a set of instructions, when you really break it down. And to solve any puzzle, you're pretty much using algorithms. You're going to be doing, and often you'll be doing do A, do B, undo A, undo B to do a certain thing. A lot of like algorithms fall into that sort of like concept. That's what they're called commutators. But yeah, I would have thought that's the case. But yeah, there are loads of events. So yeah, one-handed as well, blindfolded, obviously. Yeah, and then
hung upside down, set on fire. That would be brilliant.
Not quite. Yeah. Yeah, we have a few.
I bet you've been asked to do a lot of charity stuff doing it. Have you?
Sorry?
Do people ask you to do charity stuff doing it?
Not really. So my most solved while running a marathon, which I did 3 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, at the London Marathon. I did that to raise money for St John Ambulance, but that was just through my own. I just wanted to raise money. So yeah, I haven't been asked really. I haven't been reached out to do charity stuff. I'd love to. I mean, I'd love to do some more charity stuff because I also enjoy the running thing. I'm planning on running Hadrian's Wall this summer as well. So
wow, well done. That will be fantastic. Listen, George, you've been a marvelous guest. I think what we should end on is, if anybody wants to start, right? I mean, obviously these days you buy one of these things and you go on YouTube, but is there anywhere you should say this is where you should really start rather than, and what should you avoid? Which probably will send you off on the wrong path.
YouTube is an incredible platform. So and there are hundreds of videos now, thousands, on solving the cube. So I'd say find one that suits you actually, because there isn't actually one distinct solving method that's better than another. Some might teach in a way that just adheres to you better. So I learned from quite a random tutorial, the Dan Brown tutorial back in 2015, and that one happened to work for me. But I know plenty of people that used a different tutorial. So just find one that maybe just like feels right for you, and you want to learn from there. And yeah, obviously, if you want to learn, the only thing that's doing the thing is doing the thing. So you actually sit down and solve and learn.
Have you been listening to Rob Dials? Have you been listening to Rob Dials' podcast? Because he talks about the thing.
I haven't. No. Is that it? Is that
Yeah, he talks about doing the thing. The people.
I heard it from like a Chris Williamson like podcast, a while ago. But I think it's so true, isn't it?
You do all the planning, buy all the stuff, plan it, but actually people don't do the thing that they need to do.
Yeah, exactly. So you just sit down and do it. I mean, I really try and do that. It's pretty much just saying don't procrastinate. Because you just got to sit down and try something out. But yeah.
Well, there we go. Hopefully, loads of you are now completely inspired again to, probably go out and buy yourself one of these little cubey things for Christmas or whatever. And, maybe we could see a LinkedIn Rubik's Cube Championship. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
That'd be cool. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn have recently brought in games on the platform. I don't
know
whether you've seen them.
I haven't seen them.
All you need to do, folks, if you want to find the games, if you type games into the search bar at the top of LinkedIn, the games will appear.
It's more time wasting stuff to procrastinate.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good brain training nonsense. But if you'd like to find those, please do. But maybe, let's see if we can organise that. We're trying to organise, and George can come and sort of, be in charge of judging that. Maybe. Yeah. So if folks, if you'd like to take part in the sort of international or national, perhaps we'll start small, LinkedIn Rubik's Cube Championship. Then let us know. Rubik's, if you're watching, which you might be, because George is on here as well, maybe some kind of sponsorship, and we'll get that all organised. And people that all have to buy a Rubik's Cube from you for the day. That would be brilliant. There you go. That's your sales up, isn't it? George, you've been a brilliant guest. Thank you so much. We've learned so much.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I might even go and give it a go.
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to give it a go.
Yeah,
I might even find my son's, but then he's quite good at it, so you get annoyed with me if I mess it up.
Yeah. I might try and look for a cube somewhere around here and maybe get into it as well. Yeah, we'll see.
Brilliant. We will be back same time, same place next week. Hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, then please do share it with other people as well.